is every man born to lead? And that's on an individual basis. Not every man may have the competence, the wisdom to lead their wife or even their family. The woman may be better. And I think a lot of our values are based on, this conversation is based on Christianity in that sense. And we're based in the West in that sense, so there's a kind of like a mishmash between, do we hold on to those historical values or is it more based on Western ideals?
Hi, my name is Tolu from the Eden Ideal. This is another clip from our live event Unified, where we were exploring the breakdown in modern gender relationships. In this specific segment, we were discussing with our panel whether traditional gender roles are still relevant in the 21st century Christian household. There were lots of opinions on this, and we're keen to hear your thoughts as well. So if you have any views, please leave a comment below as you watch the video. Enjoy. Traditional gender roles are not relevant in the 21st century. Who wants to go?
We'll hand over to you guys. We've been talking quite a bit.
Okay, I'll take the bullet first then. Traditional gender roles are no longer relevant in the 21st century. Relevant. Okay, I would say yes. They are not relevant, but then I would say,
Take your time. Take your time.
I'm recording as well. Can't read statements. I feel we're in a time where obviously, things are balanced out. So let's just go straight to the point. Women and men are earning, or women are even earning more than men, right? So the whole traditional provider sort of thing is pretty much gone out the window. I'm sure we can all agree with that, yeah?
Yeah.
Everyone's silent. on your own, Aya. So I think, culturally, yeah, I'll say they're not relevant anymore, but I still think there's this element of where your dynamic or your perspective on how you want your marriage to work, relationship to work, those things may be influenced by how you see things. So I can't lie. I was raised by both parents, but my mum raised 3 boys. My mum's a caterer. I was in the kitchen from 7 years old. So I cook, I clean, I'm very domesticated. Like, out of all my guy friends, they'll tell you I was throwing down, cleaning. To me, that's normal. That's been my whole life. Average guy, that is not, pretty much normal. So, in our marriage, I'm doing that, kind of thing. She cooks as well, she cleans and all that stuff, but I do stuff as well. So that's not traditionally what I think you say a marriage is. We're both freelancers. I make more currently, but, at one point she was as well. So I think, what makes it work for your marriage, for your relationship, is what's key. And as long as there's mutual understanding and respect and honor for who you are as the man and as the wife, then who makes more, who does what. I think those things are very minor, trivial things in my honest opinion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just want to remind the audience, I want to hear from you on this one in particular. So if you have something to say, like, indicate to Tanya, wherever she is.
I'm back here.
Yeah, so that we can get you on the mic. So we're going to come to you guys at some point. But does someone else want to jump in?
I would say that, yeah, they're not as relevant anymore. If we think about the fact that women are able to go to university, for example, that was only relatively recently, just over 100 years ago. Before, it was very much you stay in the home, you do what you need to do, and that's it. Your place is not in education, for example. So we see that there's a difference in that today. But there are still some parts of the world where, girls are getting married at age 12 and they're going to be housewives and take care of the home for the rest of their lives and bear children. So I guess it just depends on where you look at in the world. But in terms of, are they relevant today? Not as much, I don't think.
I guess there's a question, should they be? Add that spice for you guys.
Yeah. I think there's changes and tweaks. I think it's about if we're talking about the marriage context, it's about making what's unique for your family. So we kind of create a culture in our home of how things are done. So when we communicate with our children, when we speak it, and act it out, we're preparing our boys from early age for marriage and to be fathers and to be that way inclined. And obviously, I'm the closest example that they have. So we very much kind of model it, but we communicate that as well. So similar, again, maybe because I grew up in a female environment, so I cook. I love cooking. I've got a passion for cooking. It's fun. So even if I get home tonight, probably at 10 o'clock, if I'm hungry, I might do a little something. And my wife's looking at me like, are you crazy? But I enjoy the process probably more than the food. And my sons jump in, because you need to, for me, I was very much taught at a young age, you don't have to rely on any woman for you to be able to survive and do well and to eat in that sense. So that was very much instilled in me. But I enjoy it. But my wife will never touch rubbish in my house. That's such a principle that I've carried from. My wife won't take any rubbish, but she'll know when the bin man comes. In that sense, you know what I mean. So that's a principle for me. So if my wife's doing stuff, I'll go to my boys. Why is your mum doing? Don't think about leaving the table without your mum's plate being, because there's honour there. Yeah. And I believe if I treat my wife in that manner, she incubates that, and I get that back tenfold.
Come on.
So that's how we try. That's how we try to operate.
Yeah. No. Okay. Can I try and add maybe like just more juice to it?
Yeah.
So if I think like what we're saying is, men should do more in the home, do all of those good things, be more chivalrous and stuff. Do we think that it's an issue if women still expect some of the traditional, like you just talked about bins, but like now, if a burglar comes into my house and we hear something going, I'm sure I'm expected to go down. Why do I have to die first? If we take it do we still want the guy to, are there still some things that you still want? I'm just trying to check landscape. I'm coming to the audience to ask. Like if you guys go on a date, do you still want the guy to pay?
Be honest.
Yeah.
No, not anymore.
I said we've got a hand here, yeah.
Let's hear from the audience.
Yeah.
Hello, oh gosh, this is weird. Okay. Speaking on the earlier point, not the dating point, because I don't know anything about that. I think that whilst it's really great to say that gender stereotypes aren't relevant, in my experience and observation of the world, I feel like, yes, women have access to education, women can go to work, and especially in the African or Afro-Caribbean community, sometimes earn more than their husbands. Things like maternity and taking career breaks and stuff, I still think that a lot of gender roles still filter through. Yeah. And there's things that we can pick and choose, and that's good, but I think that as women, well, from young anyway, you go and get your education, you go and get your job, you get your career, and then you have children if you choose to have children. And I think for me anyway, it hit me then. Every other part of life, I didn't quite feel like it was a massive deal, but once you start raising a family, these things do come up. And of course, men should be able to feed themselves. I think that's so basic. But anyway, the point is, I think that it's not that simple in that specific arena of life.
No, that's wisdom. No, that's very true, because even a lot of the things, like even the gender pay gap, when I was looking at it, there isn't actually as much of a gender pay gap, but there is a maternity pay gap. It's really those kind of things that you still see the issues manifesting. So I really like that point. Anyone else wanna jump in? There's a hand over here. I like this. People are getting comfortable.
Hello. I think there's definitely that the traditional gender roles, I think they need adapting, and I think as time goes on, different things change. Whereas, like the different ways women have been able to work, the different the amount it costs to raise a family, all of those things change. So I think it needs adapting, and I like what you two said about creating that own culture for your own household, because I think some things in gender roles are cultural as well, and it's about explaining to your say if that's your thing, that no, I take out the bins and I don't want you to, if that's your thing or you don't want to take out the bins, like, you've got to communicate that with your partner and make it known that that's sort of a thing that's important for you and that's what you value, or any sort of gender role type thing. But then being able to adapt as that goes along, as if yes, the woman's working now, but hold on, now she's had a child, she can't be on doing as much as she was because there's children to look after, and then it's being able to adapt as you go along. So I really value what you guys say about what you said to other questions as well, about the individual in front of you and working with that person, because you can't really blanket everybody the same. And I think it's very easy to say women are like this and men are like this, but we're all still individual, very different culturally, location-wise where we live and things like that. So, and each different person throughout their life experiences will have different expectations from the other person. So definitely adaptation is something that's really important.
That's a really good point.
That makes sense. So to just check then, are we saying, the standard kind of teaching is the man is the leader of the house, the woman is there to submit? Are we saying we don't need that vocabulary anymore? Or what are we actually saying? Because and another one is, vocabulary around the man is still the spiritual head of the house, so ultimately should make the final decision. Are we saying we don't need that vocabulary?
Go.
Rob knows I'm sitting here, it is stirring up in me. Okay, where do I start? Okay.
Close so we can hear it. Nice.
Okay, so you so many points there. I'm going to try and condense it. Basically, if we understand the history of where the biblical principle comes from, about the man being the head of the home and also the woman submitting to the man and all of that, society has kind of squashed that now and said, like, no, we're all equal. But ultimately, where it all comes from is that ultimately Rob, as the head of our household, will be answerable to God for us as a family. Okay, there can't be two CEOs. Okay, there can be in a company, for example, but ultimately someone makes the final decision. Okay, there's a final say, and ideally there will be agreement in that final say. Okay, but even if there is not unity in between in a conversation, ideally we wait, we stop, we pray, we don't move. Okay, until there is unity and we can come with an agreed decision. But ultimately, Rob is going to be held responsible for how he managed the Harris family. All right, and so in that sense, he is the head of our home. Do I submit to my husband? 100%. 100%, because he submits to God. I will not submit to foolishness.
That's it.
Yeah, and that was clear from the very, very beginning. As long as you are submitted to God and you are operating under the instruction of the Lord, I will follow you, I will respect you, I will protect you, I will cover you in prayer, all of that. But ultimately, we work as a team. Yeah, so Rob doesn't know everything. Rob doesn't have the blueprint for the rest of our lives and our children's lives for family. So we will consult with each other. We will talk to each other. I'll bring ideas, he'll bring ideas. We agree, we disagree. Okay, but the problem is, I think when you talked about the whole idea of in this society, you were talking about whether there needs to be what's the previous question that you asked? I was trying to stay silent and now I've forgotten. Whether in society nowadays there still needs to be, it wasn't equality. The traditional gender roles, the traditional gender roles, right, okay. My specialism is I'm a relationship coach for single women wanting to get married, have godly relationships and be married, okay. I work with so many single women, and society has fed us as women that we can be independent. We don't need a man. We don't need. But ultimately, we still want one. People pay thousands of pounds to learn how to get into the right relationship, the right marriage. We still want one, which means there is a desire and there is a need to be in relationship, in romantic relationship that leads to marriage, okay? That doesn't mean that you let go of who you are. That doesn't mean that you can no longer be you, but it means that there has to be roles, there has to be a benchmark to follow, if you like. So if we want this thing so badly, I know that I was single for much longer than I wanted to be. And when Rob came into my life, Was I happy to let go of some of that stuff? Was I happy to no longer be under the hood of the car, you know, trying to change oil and all the rest of it? Because money wasn't, I couldn't just pay for everything I needed doing, so I had to learn everything, and I was putting out bins. But when Rob came along, he's like, no, you don't. Okay, all right, babe. That works for me. But does that remove my identity? Does that make me less of a person? Does it make me less educated, less qualified, less of, you know, do I have less concepts in my head? Does it belittle me in any way? Not at all. But I like to lean on my husband. I like to have the option to do that. I love it. So yes, I submit to him. Definitely.
Rob, you sound amazing.
He really is. Yeah, but he's taken. So, yeah.
But can I just ask, from a perspective of someone that's not in a married relationship, I think I'm the only unmarried person on the panel, but I think we still, even in that arena, play to some gender stereotypes. Like, I know for me, you're like, good. I know for me, I like the sense of a man being a gentleman, and, you know, protecting the woman and respecting her and valuing her. I think that's something that should be praised and we should keep. I don't think we should throw it all away. So just to answer your question on traditional gender roles, I think there is still a place for some of them in society that benefit each gender. But I think when it comes to the individual relationship, like Rob and Sonia were talking about, like, you need to find what works for you and not necessarily subscribe to what society says. So I just wanted to, you know, talk about the unmarried aspect as well. Yeah. I think there's girl, I got you.
I think there's a couple of comments from the audience, and then we'll move on to the next segment because time is fast spent.
Thank you so much. I think some of the points that she raised. Sorry, I don't know your name. Forgive me, husband.
Sonia.
Don't be rude, Sonia. It's quite powerful because I think in our generation you can see that we struggle with it. The truth is, I think a lot of men struggle with knowing how to be a leader, and women are struggling with how do I submit. So these are two things that I think in our generation we're struggling with. Just to point out that spiritual aspect, and everything that you said, and it just reminds me in the Bible when the best example we do have is like Adam and Eve. And I think Eve, when she ate the fruit, and then it's funny, God didn't call both of them to talk to. He called the man first to speak to him, to understand what happened to his household. Why did this happen? Why did you let it happen? Did you do what I told you not to do? The woman was second in line. So even God himself keeps an order. And I found that so amazing when she said that. And that was so beautiful. But to be, like she's saying, to be under his covering is actually a blessing. I think where we do is that we see it, like she said, as if I'm submitting, it's taken away from me. Do you understand? And I think a lot of men as well, that we don't know how to lead, and the men and the women don't know how to submit. And I think if we learn how to do these two, I think the partnership works. And what happens is, I think we have to learn how to work together. Because at the moment, I think we're just divided. One has their own way of doing things, the other one has their own way. And when we come together and work and we learn our roles, I think it makes a beautiful partnership. We have to stop this division, I think. We're too divided. We need to come together to understand our roles better, and it works. So thank you for that, because it's really inspiring, especially for us singles, to see people holding up marriage, to see people accepting their roles, to see people working together. Is inspiring. Unfortunately, in the world we live in social media, a lot of people that are talking are singles. The marriage people don't have the loudest voices and leading our generation. So it's fantastic what we're seeing here, what we're doing here. So I just like to say thank you, because it really blesses us a lot. It goes a long way. Thank you so much.
It's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Because when you mentioned about social media and the married people, unfortunately, a lot of what we're seeing is the perfection or the falsehood of marriage. Our marriage is not perfect. The first years of our marriage were horrific.
Yeah, trust me.
Horrible. You know, it was not nice at all. And to be honest, if we hadn't spent so much money and declared to everyone, I think we would have, I mean, I walked to the front door so many times, and Rob just like, I didn't sign up for this. You know, it was horrible, really horrible. And it you know, in society today, a lot of people at that point would have said, yeah, irreconcilable differences were out, done. But we praise God that he caught hold of both of us at a point where it was like, we can't do this, and said, listen, first of all, it's not about you. It's not about you. And if it was about you, like if marriage in the kingdom was about you as individuals, you may as well just be in the world. We're called for higher things. And our marriages, we didn't know we were going to head up a marriage ministry. Do you know what I mean? We both came from broken homes. We had no idea of what marriage looked like, and we were making a complete mess of it. And God knew what he was going to call us to. We didn't know at that stage. But the fact is, we had to take the correction of God and say, actually, God, we're sorry. Because all we've done is focus on each other's stubbornness and habits and all of that stuff, and taken our eyes off the higher calling. And once you focus on the higher calling, all the other stuff, we all know God is in the detail. He doesn't call you to something and say, you deal with the rest of it. It's all in there. So once we focused on God again and started to see each other for how God sees us, because I'm a queen. God created me to be a queen. And my husband is a king. He doesn't see two people who are just like mean nothing to him. We are treasured by God, you know. And once I started to see Rob through God's eyes, I began to respect him and treasure him and love on him and admire him and uphold him and be patient. That was the thing. I am so impatient. I don't do nonsense. I'm just intolerant. So anything he was doing that, so far as I was concerned, wasn't correct in my sight, you're just wrong. Just wrong. Whereas I've learned now to be patient. Shut your mouth. Stop talking. Stop moaning. Stop nagging. Go to God. You want to talk to anyone? Go talk to God and ask God how he can fix you, not him, you know. But it took time. It took time. So any relationship, any marriage at the beginning can, not always, but can often be a bit of a nightmare. But we don't want to say it because it's a bit embarrassing, isn't it? You've told everyone I found the one, and you don't even like him. You don't want to tell people that.
So I want to just, because I think that it's so valuable having this conversation, and you know, we've been kind of on one side. I just want to, is there anyone who has a different opinion or just wants to add a point on the other side?
I have someone over
here. Yes, so it's good to hear everyone's view.
Yeah, so you know, I thought I'd add my 2 pence onto this anyway, but for me personally, it's almost like, is every man born to lead? And that's on an individual basis. Not every man may have the competence, the wisdom to lead their wife or even their family. The woman may be better. And I think a lot of our values are based off, this conversation is based on Christianity in that sense. And we're based in the West in that sense, so there's a kind of like a mishmash between, do we hold on to those historical values or is it more based on Western ideals? So that's pretty much where I stand anyway. So I think it's almost like, in today's day and age where we are, some women may kind of see themselves as, I can lead better than my husband. So is it for the man to say, because I'm a man, my wife can't have an opinion ahead of me? No, I don't think it is. So that's my side.
Can I add? Okay. No, because I found his statement interesting. He said that, correct me if I'm wrong, obviously the big struggle nowadays is men don't know how to be a leader, women don't know how to submit. You know, I disagree slightly. I agree with the first part. Second part, I disagree with. I disagree because most people here are women. No, honestly, because, you know, women are amazing and fascinating. I feel like when a man is in his rightful place, a woman, as you said before, submits easily. I don't think they have an issue submitting. If anything now, with all the talk we're having now, with equality, patriarchy, women are probably more fed up with what they have to submit to. So there's a bit, that's where the tension is now, because they're not having the rubbish that they've been experiencing for centuries. So, and this is one of the reasons why I started 412, because, you know, it was twofold, passion for men, and also the reality of, like, I had a lot of, you know, single sisters that were just in relationships with guys that I was kind of like helping to like counsel stuff, where I was just like, oh man, then, you know what I mean? And the only reason I could say, oh man, because I could see myself in them, what they were doing. So I thought, you know what, you can't fix him. He needs man, them, and community to talk about his issues that he's going through to sort these things out. So I really feel like, and just to answer my bro as well, like, you know, it's not about, you know, necessarily being born to lead. You know, I think there's a way in which we can be, you know, manhood is not like, what's the word to use? Manhood is not something that's necessarily created. It's something that's initiated by other men. And I feel the issue we're going to be really real now is if you look at the makeup of the home, It's very much disjointed, it's very much broke up. Man, they were just trying to find out how to be themselves, by themselves, or who else they're looking at. So for me, that was the oldest in the school. As far as I'm concerned, first day in year 7, I saw older walking down the corridor, everyone dispersed. I said, I want that. And that's what I sought for 5 years, from year 7 to 11 in secondary school, to be power, to have girls, and to have money. That was my ideal model of a man. So I think like once we fix that, once we have fathers that can, you know, disciple and father sons, then we're going to see the ripple effect where women are going to be able to, you know, just be themselves because they're now in a covering in a room that's curated for them to be themselves because a man's in his rightful place. So I think that's the main driving force that I would really say is the key.
Hope you found that conversation insightful. You know, I personally don't know where I land on this one. I think the important thing is having the conversations rather than just assuming that because it's always been done in one way, it's the right thing to do. At the end of the day, the goal is for wholesome, healthy, respectful and supporting relationships. And you need to talk about these things to really understand what works for you personally. So I hope you found that valuable. Please consider subscribing to our channel. We'll be releasing hopefully more content like this one. Also, you know, please like and share this video. It really helps us to get the message out there. Take care, guys.